Welcome to The Truth in This Art. I am your host, Rob Lee. And once again, we're back in Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love, for a interview, conversation. And today, my guest is a Puerto Rico-born, Philadelphia-based cultural producer, strategic thinker, and community development practitioner whose work is centered on cross-sector partnership and arts and culture as a tool for social change and community self-actualization. She is also the co-founder and creative partner of AFROTaino and the director of the Philadelphia Latino Film Festival. Please welcome Marangeli Mejia-Rabell. So thank you for joining the podcast. And before we get too deep, could you share your story? Where does your story begin? And what was your first art experience?
Wow, my first art experience was definitely music and film. I recall being a very young child and listening to Heaven is Missing an Angel or, Love to Love You Baby. I remember being told by my grandmother that was not a good song to sing. And I was like, Mommy, but it's talking about love. And she's like, no, Nina, not the kind of love that you need to talk about your age. So I recall that, and both, my mother, all my family loved film, and my parents were divorced since I was 3, and then remarried. That's a conversation for a different day. But long story short, I had my Saturdays with my dad, and they always began with going into a matinee at 11 a.m. in the morning. So I got to see all kinds of things. I remember negotiating with him that I needed to watch Saturday Night Fever, and he was like, that's an R-rated film. And I'm like, no, Papa, but it's about dancing, just come with me. And him getting very uncomfortable in the scene in the strip club and taking his glasses off, like, I'm not looking at the woman who's naked. But yeah, I will say those are definitely the ones that can take you. Again, Donna Summer will come, and it's like I'm 4 or 5 years old again, sitting in my mom's car and enjoying her company. So I value and really appreciate music for that.
So music, movies, starting out, and where did you grow up? Where's the story begin, if you will?
I grew up in Bayamón, Puerto Rico. Bayamón, Puerto Rico, el pueblo del chicharrón. Yes, it's a town known for many things. There's a song that says that in Bayamón it rains every day. Bayamón is known for its traffic jams. People are known for being strong-willed.
There's a lot of tourist energy floating around.
But it's about 20 minutes from San Juan. So I grew up in that area, went to school, and going to Old San Juan was our coming-of-age experience. Every weekend we will hang out. You're talking, I was born in 1968. You're talking about, I'm class of 86 in high school. So having a good time and hanging out, no carding, people, yes, all day, yes. I'm not even going to get into it, but yes, to all of it. We were coming right after, think about it, it's about, we're coming, our parents, some of them got to experience the early 70s and all that experimentation, disco, and then here we come as a generation. So Saturday Night Fever is the first film that I recall that I don't see that I'm myself as a kid, even though I was a kid.
Yeah.
Like when Menudo came out, I'm like, they're too cute for me.
Yeah, Ricky Martin.
No. They're kids. They're kids like me. I'm not interested in that.
I'm into adult stuff.
Exactly. I was, checking. My sister is a little bit over 8 years older than me. My mother, magazines, looking at Studio 54, looking at Andy Warhol and Bianca Jagger, having a great time. That's what I was interested in. I'm like, I want to grow up and hang out and do that and go to parties and all of that and learn about art and learn about fashion. And, so from a very early age, and my mother liked to host a lot of friends. So I understood from a very, very early age, not so much in the domestic sense, even though there's an element of that, the importance of creating a space for folks to feel comfortable, to relax, to hang out, to experience each other, and how those were tokens of love, tokens of gratitude, right? So opening the doors of your house, and of course that was combined with the fear. You're talking to somebody who navigates OCD on a regular and has tried to use it as an asset, but understanding that my grandma was like, you don't know who's coming through that door. If it's going to be you, you have to leave your house impeccable in case that somebody else has to come. So anyway, so you balance the two.
I used to, like, when I listened to, people who were around doing things before I was born in 85, right? So I would hear things from my parents of like, yeah, we used to do this. We used to have a fish fry on Friday nights and all of these different things. And now I'm not around that stuff. Like when I'm in my own space and having a pretty nice sized space, I'm not hanging out with my, any of the art friends I've gotten, during this series. I'm just kind of, all right, mad scientist style. What's the next question I'm writing? What are the movies that I'm watching? And parts of that I like. And, as a person that is always on this sort of like navigating anxiety, it's just like, what are we doing? How long are we going to be there? Having that timer that goes off.
Exactly.
And I will say, and this is going to go to a second question, I think, because I think I have a sense of it, but one of the highlights, right, that I've had over the last like few weeks was I had a day to myself, right? Now, I'm not working on a podcast. I'm not going to work. I'm not hanging out with anyone. That I watched 5 movies. And I was like, this was a great day.
Yeah, that's not a bad day.
This was a great day. And in the diverse mix, some like movies that I knew were schlock, like this is bad, this is mid, but I'm going to finish it. And then doing, in some sense, I had one movie homework assignment. I watched Deliverance for the first time, and I was like, this is a bit much. I was like, I need a palate cleanser for this. Where's the cartoons?
Exactly.
Watch cartoons right after it. So in hearing about some of the music earlier and some of the movies earlier, what would you say was something that kind of helped shape your creative sensibilities?
Bueno, I'm glad that that's the second question, because what I was as I'm thinking of what I share with you, is like, I need to say that there was Donna Summer, pepper with El Gran Combo, pepper with other stuff, with rock, right? Boston, Chicago. So it's all this thing. One of the things that was really interesting for me adapting to living in Philly was that I grew up in a place that we listened to all kinds of music. And that everything was on rotation in the same station. You go from Sugar Hill Gang to like a merengue song, and it's like, what? But for us, that was absolutely the way it was, right? Other experiences, I will say definitely TV. I will call, me and my friends will say we're televidiotas, right? I come from that. I was, 12 when MTV kicked off, and our launch music videos definitely were part of that experience. The premiere of the Pat Benatar, Love is a Battlefield.
It's a strong tune. That's a strong tune right there.
A fabulous tune. But it became a happening, right? Then you had your girlfriends or people that you went to school, either you're talking on the phone, do you watch that? Damn, that's so fly. To, hanging out and going, I don't know. At that point, we were going to like high school parties or something like that, and you will come home and then just like, you wanted to watch MTV all the time. A lot of the hanging out. And then when you were in Old San Juan, you have the combination of all these different influences, and then you have the folkloric sounds, the bomba, the plena, the rumbas that are being set up in the street, and you're just embracing everything. And it's just part of who you are. There was no questioning of identity at that point, which was the other interesting part when I come here, right? And I understand that Puerto Rico, to some extent, was a blended community, not as much as here, but you have families that were from different countries that live in the island. But the majority of people were Puerto Rican. So my identity was not questioned. And when I got here, as soon as I opened my mouth, where are you from?
Right.
And you're Puerto Rican, but you don't sound like the other Puerto Ricans. What is that supposed to mean?
What does that mean?
What does that mean? Telenovelas are a big part of the culture, right? Then there's the novela where there's a shh. don't say a word. Right? But that they're short-lived. You're talking to somebody who started watching The Young and the Restless when I was 15, summer of 83. Yeah. And I still watch. I still watch on DVR, and my mom will be like, is that soap still going on? Why is it so long? And Mama, it's a different ballgame. It's just a different show. And she got used to like, what in Puerto Rico are telenovelas. Here will be like a miniseries, like a few months, a Netflix series.
I think, and I like one of the things that you touched on. It brought back a memory, and I think it's kind of blows that it's not happening to that degree anymore. But the premiere of a video, where I remember, I think it was maybe 99, maybe 2000. Coming from high school, you know, guys, we're terrible. But coming from high school and leaving class and talking with my friends about like the thong song, like Cisco, and just like, man, you should see that at the premiere, man. I gotta watch it tonight. Now
let's talk about the box.
Yeah. Oh my God, I love. See, here's the thing. Don't get me started. You know, I was like looking for this K7 and Ty Bless song all the time. There's a pocket.
Don't feel bad. I was looking at the dancers too. I was like, forget K7. He must be like 5'4". Que lindo.
There's a pocket of me. Like I have a year where I think when I was working in this Spanish-speaking call center, that all I was listening to was freestyle music. So it's just Miami bass, and I had a curl bow, and it was a very interesting time. I all hung out with Puerto Ricans and Dominicans. That's who I was hanging out with, and it's just like, yeah, Tiny, you're here. It's like, let's do it.
There you go. And we can do, and that blend of sounds, right? Yeah. That even navigating here, you know, enjoying hip hop and other sounds, R&B, house music, this, that. But there was also that space that we can listen to both.
Absolutely. And I think like this sort of, and I think you touched on it. I know you touched on it, where it's just like, you don't fit this. This is what we're accustomed to, and it's like, well, this is who I am. This is who I am as an individual, and there is space for me. Like often, people can't really pick out, where are you from? I say, from Baltimore. You don't sound like it though.
Oh my God!
Or you don't have whatever the shortcuts are to put you in this sort of box, and then it brings in this sort of question of like authenticity or whatever, and it's just like, my experience is mine.
Absolutely, absolutely. And when you asked me earlier, you know, where does the story begin and what are like the critical things like VR experiences, you know, I also have to put it in the context of who my mother was.
Sure.
Right? My mother was the strongest figure for me growing up. Mad respect to my dad and everybody else. You know, they all play a role. But my mother was that person that was like a hurricane. She will walk into the room and she will grab everybody's attention. And she was very strong-willed, very clear. Yeah. She definitely didn't give a flying fuck about what anybody thought. She was living her truth. And embracing it in a way that was very loving and very fun, but at the same time, don't question her.
People tend to be intimidated by that personality type, right? And it's funny because I'll encounter folks that's like, well, yeah, this person is kind of this way. And those folks generally like me. You know what I mean? Where it's just like, oh, no, you go about it this way. Actually, I would go a little harder about that. But it's like, you're honest about it. You were very direct about it. And actually, you could have been a little more of a dick about it if you wanted to.
No, claro. Pero es que light sees light. And Mama, you know, my parents divorced when I was 3. And my mother divorced my dad because she came out of the closet. It didn't have anything to do with love. They loved each other, and I got to hang out with them. My mother with her partner. My father remained single. They remarried 26 years later. Again, conversation for a different day. But, you know, at the end, at the core, what they taught me is actually, I can say this. What they taught me is what we see. Love is love, right? Yeah. So they found their way back to each other. They were family, but that never stopped.
Right.
Because of the way that my mother wanted to lead her life. That had nothing to do with her not loving him. It had to do with her living her truth. Yeah. Right? And the fact that it's not about being in your face. It's just about being comfortable. Yeah. And she, ever since I was a little girl, she would say, Nena, you got to go to bed. When you go to bed, you got to sleep like a baby. So you always speak your truth. You always keep it clean. You always treat people with the respect that you would want them to treat you.
Golden rule.
Absolutamente. So it doesn't mean that you're going to be contentious or difficult or this. It's just, this is it. As we will say in Spanish, esto es lo que hay. This is the deal.
So let's talk about AFROTaino and the Philadelphia Latino Film Festival. Let's talk a little bit about that. Tell us about it. What is what does your work within those two organizations entail? In a sort of director, leadership, cultural organizer roles. Tell us about that.
Thank you. So AFROTaino, I'm one of the co-founders, and, I have Rosan Lucas, who's my partner in crime in AFROTaino and co-founder of AFROTaino, and I met in the early 90s at a place that a lot of people will be like, what? Revival. That used to be an after hours club, and we met, and he had been to Puerto Rico. We connected there. You know how you see people around the scene and you're like, hey, what's up? And at some point we reconnected in the early 2000s, 2004. Rasan had a background as an actor, theater, percussion, African drumming, and a DJ. And we began talking about the experiences that he had. At that point, he was spending full time for the most part. And we kept on talking about what people expected, right? Music that was moving us, music that was resonating with us, music that we were interested in, right? And having those conversations and getting to that. And you go to the club and they want to play Madonna, or they're asking you to this. Hey, real talk. The worst, no disrespect to anybody who loves this song, but my request of all time was somebody coming to me and, can he play the percolator? No, baby, this is not that kind of party.
Oh, no.
There's no percolator here. You can play that when you get in the car home, right? But anyway, so the idea was to really expand the musical palette and just really, again, Rasan was embracing his work as a DJ through the same lens. What we had in common was the understanding of an experience of what we will get into. What's the party that's going to bump that we want to be at?
Right, yeah.
Right? And began that conversation. It was like, oh, this, that, no disrespect to anybody and their musical preferences. But he was like, yeah, but this is different. What I'm creating is a space. It's not what you listen to. Sorry, I know we're past that. What you listen to in your iPod, blast from the past. What you listen to when you are working or at the gym, right? Come for something else. And he was doing just phenomenal stuff, like mixing merengue with Indian Bhangra, with soca, with this, with hip hop, with house. And it became this thing that we kept on talking about, just this gap. And at some point we were like, our intention was not to go into nightlife. Yeah. It was just to begin exploring what spaces we could create and what experiences we could co-produce, right, and curate. But it began, he was doing a residency, and it became this thing that was the place, right? And I was there on weekends, and then you will come in and, hey, Rob, let me introduce you to the bartender and meet the bouncer. And my girlfriend will come in, and this guy's looking at you. No, she doesn't want to dance with you. Leave her alone. Right. So I ended up becoming the default hostess, right? And then people were like waving flags and doing all kinds of stuff, and we were having a great time. That's how we began. And we continue to expand that to then doing record release parties or listening parties for new records or new releases from artists that we were into. And we will do the hour before the Saturday night so people could come. And always infusing different sounds into the set. And people will be like, who's that you play? And who's that you play? And I will say this because I got to witness it. In a space where a lot of DJs are like Serato, this, that, Rasan was mixing with a headphone, CDs and vinyl, just by ear.
Wow.
And I remember a group of DJs that will come in, because he used to also spin a lot of dance hall, and it was bumping in there, came one night to the booth after dinner, and they started looking, and they were like, "Espérate, hold on. How are you?
Like, where's the thing?
And he was like, "No, there ain't no thing. I'm not bringing my laptop here. That stays at home." And they were like, "What?"
I remember being on a cruise once to the Bahamas, and this is where a phrase I came up with. I was like, "Oh, there's DJ iPad right there."
No. He cannot be that person. He's too much of a purist to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, and obviously, as you go, you supplement it, but definitely a vinyl head at the core, and definitely reading the crowd and having a good understanding. What was really interesting about the two of us coming together under this umbrella was the fact that the bulk, he had all that nightlife experience, right? And in my case, I have worked for a long time in nonprofits, infusing arts and culture, right? I don't know. I'm doing workforce development, and we're going to do this capacity building workshops, and people are going to do writing. Let's bring a poet. Or we're going to do this. Let's do hip hop. Or we're going to do let's do role plays, right? Because I had done some community theater in the early 90s. So just bringing all of yourself into the space and bringing yourself into the space, and also trying to make it very practical, especially in an ESL space. Because I have learned the language as a core subject in Puerto Rico. But the reason I moved here, I initially came here for 6 weeks to practice, to see how bilingual I could be in a space that immersed myself, right? So bringing those two experiences, Rasan also brought there's a lot of nuance, right? You got to tip your bartender. You got to flow. There are three. I remember when we were talking about this, the people that come early to the club and head home by 11. The ones that show up at midnight. The ones that come for the last call. How do it's bumping. The bar's a little slow. You got to know what you're doing, so they go back and they come back. So bringing all of that is that insight from being in different spaces, right? Starting really young in that culture and understanding and knowing the players. And in my case, then I had the community base, the grassroots stuff. And just combining those two perspectives to really then look at things in a way of how is it that these two worlds meet, and how is it that they're not confined to either or, and how audiences a lot of times, just like we began, bringing it back to the basics of our one of our first conversations, where is it that all these people are in the middle? Where's that gap? And from there begin, curating and programming and co-programming and co-presenting, and let's just do it in different spaces, in galleries, in different, from street festivals to let's just do something that it's, a gala for a nonprofit, or something that is related to a cause that is dear to our heart, right? A PSA when in Arizona people were losing their mind and, do I look illegal? We got to do that with a filmmaker who's a colleague, dear friend, shout out to Eunice Levi, who was just like, and just being, I know that the love for the work, the love for the understanding or the impact, the transformational impact that music, film, arts, and culture has had in our lives, the fact in both cases, it's a highway to our mothers. It's a highway to our mothers. He will laugh. If at any point we're somewhere hanging out and chilling, he'll be like, what do you want to listen to? And he looks at me. He knows what I'm going to say. I'm going to say disco. And he's going to say disco. And we're both laughing, thinking back. It's that connection that in a way it's like a lot of times, it's good to be clear about the fact that we do this. We're healing each other. And we're doing this to share, but also for ourselves. Is food for our souls. And that's how we see the spaces that AFROTaino has created, and creating spaces for emerging voices and introducing them to audiences. That has been, something that has brought a lot of pride. And we have been doing it now for 17 years. Amazing. We have been blessed to do the really do-it-yourself stuff that we want to try, and do the bigger, the big venues with the big bands, and both of them bring a lot of joy, right?
And that's
there's not an either or; it's both.
That captivates me in that I look at doing this as sort of my entry point to satisfy curiosity, and it's so many more things that I want to do, and I don't want to be like, this is purely the only thing that I do. It's like, I know how things are supposed to be, and even in doing this, like, I'm not a toot my own horn sort of person or what have you. It's not really a thing that I do and I'm comfortable with, because I think if I'm not deeming myself that, then I don't think I should call myself that. Like, some people will say, oh, you're a curator. It's like, I'm just very selective of who I want to work with. And but there is that sort of overlap and that sort of correlation there. So there is like some sort of eye there and who I'm looking to talk to, and just kind of how, some of the people I mentioned to you earlier, like, oh, this person? Yeah, like I'm doing that sort of like research, and there's thought that goes into it. But really, some of the stuff that you had mentioned about being able to do some of the programming and sort of connecting these different dots. I'm in this spot where it's like venues are coming and things like that are opening up. So I'm like, this is the why. I'm in that spot now.
But you touch on something that is really critical, is being curious, right? And remaining curious. And for us, that's the joy. Yeah. Right? Oh, shit. Do you hear this? Have you checked this artist? Like, they're bands that we have thought about, that we have looked or listened. And it's like, it's not if we're doing it, it's when. It's when. Yeah. Right? Ife being a perfect example. We listened to Ife. Their first single that we listened to was called Tres Mujeres, and we watched that video and we were like, oh, this is definitely happening. We don't know how or when, but this is freaking happening. We're doing it. And we were blessed to have the opportunity to present them. Daimea Rosena, who is a Cuban jazz singer and a phenomenal interdisciplinary artist. Same thing. We heard that voice and we were like, whoa, have you heard this girl? Oh my goodness. But at the same time, the pushback in between. Yeah. I can mention two. One was Calle 13. I remember going to Puerto Rico, ironically, around this time for Christmas. I'm sorry. Yep. So my apologies.
No, you're good.
But going to Puerto Rico and coming back with the Calle 13 CD. And it was my niece who introduced me to the song Chulin Culin Fun Fly. And she said, Culin Chulin Culin Fun Fly. And I was like, oh, this track is banging. And I come back with the CD and Rasan is like, nah, man, that's not going to play in the club. And I'm like, yo, I'm telling you. And he's like, nah, man, no, I don't know. And then we got to try. And obviously the rest is history. Calle 13 holds the record for the most wins in terms of Latin Grammys. Wow. Yeah, absolutely. And it was just bananas. And then we got to see that thing just explode, and they were everywhere, right? And we were blessed. That was actually the first act that once we organized ourselves as AFROTaino, we got a call from Sony BMG at that point telling us, hey, we're bringing this act and we want to do like a press run and da-da-da. We want you to work with us. Yeah. So that was one example, and we were blessed. Actually, Calle 13 only did one show in Philadelphia in 2014, and AFROTaino was a proud co-presenter. But it took that long for us to, and we developed a relationship through the years with the band, with the management. We have presented there. I don't know how familiar you're with the band, but there's is a total of three people, right? Residente.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Residente, and then Visitante, who's the producer, and then there's PG-13, who's Ile. Mm-hmm. PG-13, because she was the youngest sister, right? But we have also presented Ile twice. And then, work with management in other shows. But that was an interesting case of us like, nah, man, that's not going to play. Yeah. And obviously, and then the other one, Rosan will say he's not a fan of, he respects or he sees what's happening, but he's not a Bad Bunny fan.
Right.
I am.
It's like let's just
Hello.
make this a thing.
Let's put it, and for me, it took time.
Yeah.
I'm not, all due respect to everybody who likes trap music, not really my jam like that. I don't get down like that. And he liked reggaeton. When we first met, Rasan was, teasing me about Daddy Yankee's Gasolina. And I was like, that's not for me. That's not for me. And I remember buying the CD and feeling somewhat dirty about it, saying, what is happening to me? I'm listening to this stuff now and I'm all over it. And when it comes to Benito and Bad Bunny, he's like, and I'm like, all about it. But it took for me to listen. After he released the Por Siempre album, Christmas Eve of 2017, Post Maria. Yeah. I was like, okay, I'm going to take the time to listen. It's a wrap. Yeah. It's a wrap. He got me. And Benito continues to show that he's growing. Yeah. That he's evolving. It's like people that were horrified by Atrévete by Calle 13. And oh my God, so vulgar. It's like, nena, déjalo. He's in his 20s. Let people do and express the moment that they're in and do what they need to do for themselves.
Yeah, his ascent has been pretty interesting to watch. Like, wow, you are crushing. It's like you're like the most streamed. Like what's happening? Like, and then popping up on other things. It's like, you're wrestling now. Like, what are you doing?
What is the film with Brad Pitt?
Right, and Bullet Train. Yeah,
exactly. All kinds of stuff. But he, there's substance there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's the reality, right? It's not a gimmick.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's not necessarily my thing, but also I'm coming with kind of blinders on, and then kind of checking. I was like, oh no, this kind of slaps actually, or I like this, or I like the presentation of it, or the whole packaging, right? Because even like the album artwork, I forget which one it is. It might be. I'm not sure which one it is, but it really catches my attention or have you. And it's like,
is it the one with the eye or is it the one with the heart?
The heart.
The heart is Un Verano Sin Ti.
Yeah.
But that was out summer, and that's a party album, right? Mm-hmm. So I've seen him 3 times. I saw him on his first show in Puerto Rico last year on December 10th. And that was after the other album, the one with the truck.
Yeah.
Right? So that was, forget it. And in Puerto Rico, you had like 12, like everybody was there. Romeo Santos was there, like you name it. And it was 40,000 people. And then after that, there was the whole thing that everybody was like, big spreader band. And the whole Omicron thing exploded in Puerto Rico. And that was phenomenal. He was so overwhelmed by the reception, by seeing everybody together. I felt like a kid. I was just like, I was returning to Puerto Rico after not being there for almost 10 years. And then I get to go to the show. And yes, I wasn't happy. I was standing in line for 4 hours, but I knew what I was going for. Yeah. And people were just going to have a good time. I remember being with a colleague that traveled with me, and she had some concerns. And I was like, no. People here didn't come to mess with anybody. They came to have a good time. Mm-hmm. And just looking around at people a lot younger than me and a lot older than me. And everybody was freaking jamming.
That appeal was.
And that thing started at 11:30. Mm-hmm. It was supposed to start at 8. It started at 11:30 because of the letting people in. Yeah. He got done by 2:30 in the morning.
Wow.
And then he went, absolutely bananas. And then he went, the Choliseo, which is another, venue, he had rented for people who couldn't get tickets so they can watch it via stream. And then he got on a car and went to the Choliseo and did a half an hour set there.
Wow. That's amazing.
Then saw him here, right, in March with my daughter. And that's the Live Nation, very, well-produced, different. You have a guest, but the screens is very it's not, I don't want to say cookie cutter, but it's the one that, you're touring, and this is you don't have the 20 people showing up, that kind of thing, right? The other one was home, the emotion, right?
I feel like the Puerto Rican one is the one I don't want to go to.
They're both good in different ways, and I'm blessed that I went to both. And then the third one was the Made in America one.
Made in America is pretty strong, actually.
That was pretty good. Because that's De Un Verano Sin Ti.
Yeah.
Now you have that album into the mix, and that's Titi. Forget it. That's a party.
Yeah. So I got one real question left before I hit those rapid fire questions.
Whoa.
So this is the real one.
We didn't talk about Flav.
Let's talk about Flav real quick.
See, let's talk about
please.
Flav. Please, people. They're going to be like, what? All right.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Sorry.
So part of the work with AFROTaino also involve us nibbling in collaborations, or not nibbling, but just embracing collaborations with visual artists like Betsy Casaña, Celso Gonzalez, through different things, right? Different efforts. And in 2012, the Philadelphia Latino Film Festival, at that point, the Philadelphia Latin American Film Festival, and with an F, FLAF, en español, Philadelphia. It's founded by a group of friends and colleagues, including David Acosta and Beatriz Piera, and they called on AFROTaino to come in as a collaborator, music curator, and do an opening night event with them and co-present films with them. There's something very personal that happened to me after that first event. That was April 13, 2012. We did the kickoff for Flav. And at that point, the film that they presented is called Broken Memories or Found Memories, and it's all about death. And I just got very afflicted, very sad by it. And I kept on thinking about my mom, and I just felt this anguish that I couldn't explain, Rob. I was sobbing and sobbing. Because I said, Meg, but your mom was actually scheduled to come here after Mother's Day, and this is April 13. We walk out of the place, and the following day I had to work my other gig, get up in the morning, I get a text. I knew what it was. My mother had passed that morning of a massive heart attack. So definitely something that has stayed with me, right? And I remember having a wonderful conversation that night around that, the combining. My heart tells me and my mind tells me she knew. She was saying her goodbye. And she was like, I'm very proud of you, da-da-da. And she was like, it's interesting to me how you have been able to combine your commitment to service and your love for arts and culture. Right. Now with this new venture. And I'm like, yep. So then 2013 happens. We co-present. And then in 2014, I didn't go. On 2013, it was too close. I didn't go to any of the festival activities because it coincided with her first anniversary. And then in 2014, Bia and David approached me to join their board, to focus more, to come and curate the events, the after parties, like bring that expertise into the mix. Mm. As the way life goes, transitions happen, people have to do other things. One of the co-founders is moving on from the festival. The other one is now moving literally to the West Coast. And there's this conversation about what do we do? And I'm like, oh, espérate, what do you mean, what do we do? Let's talk about it. We're in a city where Black Star is growing and PAF is growing, the Philadelphia Asian American Film Festivals. We're a city of festivals. What are you talking about? We're doing great. Festival was well received. And they're like, okay, well, let's map it. Okay, let's talk in like 3 weeks. And 3 weeks later, I get a call. They're like, hey, we have an idea. We would like for you to take it over. And I was like, yes, absolutely. And then I was like, AFROTaino. And then I remember telling Rosan, hey, this happened. And I say this and my bad. And he was like, Maggie, film has been your passion. AFROTaino got to curate film. We did a series called Perspectivas, where we were presenting, and we got to present Calle 13's first documentary, Celia Cruz's documentary, Henry Chalfant came and spent some time with us. So we did some cool stuff. Yeah. And he knew that was, the same way that he was a vinyl head or a music head, he wanted to, you're the film head at the table. Yeah. And it has been, absolutely wonderful. The difference is, FLAF is a nonprofit organization. AFROTaino is a for-profit business, right? It's a creative agency, whatever you want to call it. We're programmers, we're curators, and here comes the organization. So with a lot of love and care and also respect to our founders and to the mission of the organization was embracing taking the leadership role in a way that was consistent with that commitment to that vision of creating space, and obviously informed by the years as a community organizer and the commitment or the understanding of the transformational power of collective impact, the importance of collaboration, a commitment and a passion for co-creation. So FLAF is, yes, it is Philadelphia Latino Film Festival. We rebranded and went with the PHL, right? Because we felt was more aligned with everything that was happening in the city. And just wanted to be like, okay, let's think about our audience. Let's think about 2015, which was my first season. And it was like talking to the same designer and saying, no, think about this moment, the Latinos here, think about you. Olvídate, forget what it was, not in a disrespectful way, but we're coming in, do you. Yeah. And Didier Garcia, shout out, absolutely blew our minds and did it for years and continues to be part of that family. But it was just making sure that for the platform to be one center around co-creation, you have to stay nimble. Yeah. You have to stay open. You have to come with an open mind and an open heart. Every season is a different opportunity. Every season is a new learning.
Because you don't want to be static. You want to be dynamic. Yeah.
No. And I don't care. With my apologies to everybody, all the sister festivals, it's not for me. Like, I respect when it's done. Would I get on a red carpet if it's done? It's not really. I prefer to hit, there's Rob. Let me go talk to him more than the picture on the red carpet. Yeah. And for me, again, because it's about the transformational power of arts and culture that I feel, and whoever this fits, go ahead and take it. The whole thing of arts are so transformational. They're so the power of arts and culture, and so then vibrant. It's so vibrant. She's so passionate, but then it becomes the freaking afterthought. It's like arts and culture are just like the sprinkle. I'm going to put a little bit of cilantro in the taco, right? And it's like, no, I don't freaking think so. Yeah. The inspiration, what gets us through joy, through laughter, through grief, through difficult times, through frustrations. It's that. That's what feeds our souls. Don't make it a freaking afterthought. If you want to be comprehensive and holistic and intentional and mindful, then think about what a shortcut it could be in educational settings, in career development settings, in capacity building settings. I did it for years. It's like, yes, espérate. Let's talk about this. Let's watch this film, and then let's talk about it. You know what I mean? And there are a million ways to do it and a million approaches. And then there's the creativity, because at the core, we're interacting as humans. So there's a lot of nuance every step of the way. There are a lot of cultural practices, and we have to embrace those and learn from each other. Yeah. And in the manner that you come as you are, and you see yourself reflected, then you say, this is for me. This is for me. Right? So FLAF at the core is a platform center on nurturing creatives and building community. So we have two groups of stakeholders that are our focus. Creatives and filmmakers, right? Because I'm not going to say only filmmakers, because there's so much interdisciplinary work. Yeah. We don't want to box ourselves either, right? And they're part of this ecosystem. They're part of this landscape. They're part of this practice and this field. And then there are audiences. Yeah. And our audiences are comprised from the doñita who's sitting at home that wants someone to watch a film, to the nonprofit that wants to bring a group, to everybody in between. University students, everybody and anybody. And facilitating cross-cultural dialogue. That's the other part of the FLAF mission. So it's an ongoing thing, and that's the way, at least my humble opinion, that's the way that we embrace it. We're a collective of creatives that come together every season. They're different ingredients, but we're always making a gumbo. And the gumbo that we're making is the experience of the festival. And we emerge from, initially being a weekend to then going a fourth day to then here comes the pandemic. Yeah. And the pandemic comes 81 days before our opening, or not the pandemic, actually, let me stand corrected. The lockdown related to the pandemic comes 81 days before our opening day in 2020. So we're going to continue producing. We're in production. It's like we have our program. We keep on moving because everybody at that point was pushing things to like late May, early June. Well, those are our dates. Let's just take part. By late April, we were like, okay, and now what? So we went and we're like, okay, so we're pivoting, we're going virtual. Yeah. And the first year, and the second year, the then programming director, Cristal Sotomayor, and I were sitting with one of the different platforms, just, shopping and just getting like demos and that kind of thing. Somebody goes, what did you do last year? And we go, pues Vimeo Live license, Dropbox and spreadsheets. Yeah. And the guy was like, impressive, so fucking impressive. He didn't know what to do, but we understood at the core of that decision was we wanted to make sure that el calorcito, which is what we want people to feel that warmth when they come into our events. Yeah. I don't care about this. I care about access. Yep. That our programming is accessible to everybody, that there's not, I don't go for any of like their VIP, no. You're going to eat, you're going to drink, you're going to hang like everybody else. You're going to sit next to whoever, like, this is what filmmakers come to be in community with each other and with audiences. Audiences come to be in community. That's where it's at.
We don't need a velvet rope separating.
No, I don't need any. No. You can take the velvet rope and, take it home. I don't need it. And again, no diss to anybody who does it, but
that's not what you're doing.
This is not what we're doing.
So I think it's funny, like, you got the last thing that I wanted to get in that, so we can actually go into the rapid fire questions. Ooh. See, this is the productivity of being able to go on through. I was like, oh, you got everything in there, actually.
No, and I would say, just to wrap it up, that AFROTaino, how is it in a balancing act, right? Yeah. In the beginning, when I said the thing about telling her, I took I said yes to this, it was also the respect of giving each other their space and being very mindful. Now, there is obviously a lot of synergy between the two teams. Mm-hmm. So now you have us, AFROTaino has been the music curator. There's another project when it makes sense. It's not like, oh, she brought this because I didn't want that. Mm-hmm. They each stand on their own, but there is so much synergy in terms of the work with creatives expanding to other practices, to other disciplines that makes sense, that were like a natural fit. Same happens with Gusto. Yeah. Which is a project that I started after Hurricane Maria, co-founded with Amy Rivera Nazar from Amy's Pastelillos. Shout out to Miss Amy. And Gusto, that does a Bad Bunny brunch, has done 3, where we have a great time with Benito theme dishes and a DJ and great stuff. But Gusto is the culinary partner for FLAF. That makes sense. So we do a Gusto Grub Guide where people can order and use, there are a number of establishments and culinary artists in the city, chefs and restaurants, etc., and pop-ups, all of that, that then you use the Gusto code and they may give you, I don't know, there's a special or there's a free dessert, or that's our way to promoting each other because we are part of an ecosystem. Yeah. And the idea is, how do we support each other, right? It's not only about, hey, can you do food for my event or can you do this? No, it's how is it that we're building community with each other each and every step of the way. That's where it's at for me.
I appreciate that. We have an additional conversation to have because I have some ideas, and I think that approach is definitely aligned with how I want to go about things, and some of the ideas that I have, and some of the conversations I've started and teed up. And I think at times people don't have that sort of vision to see, like, we're all in the same area. We all are a part of this. We can be connected in this different way. And, you know, sometimes it's like I said earlier, I think before we got started with this sort of creative directing stuff that I'm interested in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, well, this is what you could do. Or consulting in this way, you know, this is an idea, right? And it's almost like there needs to be this additional stamp to prove that this can work. It's like, I already have it. I already have this proof. There's a proof of concept here. Sure. Somebody else is doing this. It's maybe in a different city. Just have a broader vision.
See, but when we're doing it as people of color, it's alternative. I heard somebody at a panel say, you know what, Dr. Marta Moreno Vega, big shout out. If you don't know who this woman is, please look her up. She's just, I will say in Spanish, la mamá de los pollitos. She's la jefa. Yeah. And Dr. Moreno Vega does not mince words. And she was like, you know what, enough with that. Mm-hmm. Our spaces are ours. They're not alternative.
Yeah, 100%. So, here's the rapid fire questions. They're quick questions. No need to overthink them.
Dale.
So here's the first one. Mm-hmm. Do you prefer the word art as a noun or as a verb?
As a noun.
What was the last movie you watched?
Oh my God, the last movie I watched. Dios mío, 100 días con Tata. Con la Tata. 100 Days with La Tata on Netflix. It's about this guy being locked in the pandemic with somebody who's like, he's sort of abuela, but they're not really related by blood. Yeah. Beautiful.
Nice. Here's the last one.
Yes.
So starting tomorrow, a day has 25 hours. What do you do with the extra hour?
I take it to treat myself with some love and go for a walk. And think about what I want to do when I grow up.
That is great. Thank you so much. In that, I want to invite and encourage you to tell the fine folks, the listeners, where they can check out all of the things that you're working on, the film festival, AFROTaino, all of that stuff. The floor is yours.
So you can check AFROTaino at AFROTaino.com, or you can check us on social, and especially on Instagram as at AFROTaino PROD. When we were younger, before our quinceañero, we used to be known as AFROTaino Productions. We dropped that as we embrace our 15 years. And you can find FLAF under Philadelphia Latino Film Fest on Instagram, and you can also find us on Facebook, both. In the website for FLAF is phlaff.org. Check us out.
Thank you so much. That's pretty much the podcast.
Oh, por favor, perdón, Gusto Philly. Check out Gusto Philly. You can find Gusto. Again, we're an ecosystem. You can find Gusto at the AFROTaino website. It has a section. But you can find us on Instagram at Gusto Philly.
And there you have it. For Marángeli Mejia-Rabell, I'm Rob Lee, saying that there's arts, culture in and around your city. You just got to look for it.